We thank all the delegates for being here with a special warm welcome to those attending the conference for the first time. But we want to welcome a member who was at the conference, the very first conference for the first time, and that she had a dream many years ago that the 12 steps that help alcoholics could also help us compulsive overeaters. Since she was the first member, she has a very unique perspective of the evolution of the OA program. This is a lady who's been very special to me since I came into program, and I have a lot of admiration and respect. And I'd like to introduce our founder, Rozanne.
Thank you. Oh, that's lovely to see, considering that I was doing laundry this morning. That's very nice. Good afternoon, my friends. My name is Rozanne, and I'm a compulsive overeater. Over the years, many of you have heard me tell the story of OA, what we were like, what happened, and what we are like now. Over and over in conventions and in conferences, I've described how I rewrote the 12 steps, yes I did, and how they were finally restored and adopted at our first national conference in August 1962. That's nearly 32 years ago. But no one here has ever heard a description of our original 12 traditions and how they evolved into our present form. When I began researching them, I was really surprised to find that I've never talked about their development at all. So right now, for the very first time anywhere, I'm going to tell you the story of our traditions, how they came to be the way they are today. And please remember that when I give you my feelings about what I did, these are my opinions, and they don't reflect you, the trustees, or OA as a whole. During OA's first year, after I rewrote the 12 steps and took out God as much as I could, we simply paid no attention to the 12 traditions. They were confusing to me and meant absolutely nothing. Besides, until taking my husband's friend to a meeting of the brand new Gamblers Anonymous, I had never had contact with the 12-step group at all. All during that first year, our only literature was a printed sheet with the rewritten 12 steps and the Serenity Prayer. Remember, we had only one OA group with 6 or 7 members. Of course we were autonomous. There were no other groups with whom to unify. After 10 months, we were invited to be interviewed by Paul Coates on his national television show. That was in late 1960. At that point, Jim Willis, who has since passed away, the founder of Gamblers Anonymous, began nagging me to reinstate Step 3, which I had removed and replaced with a step about seeing a doctor. By that time, at Jim's insistence, I had been to many AA meetings trying to learn the program. I'd become familiar with the traditions, but I felt they had to be rewritten for us as well. I was a professional writer, and I didn't like Bill Wilson's manner of writing, and I just decided to rewrite everything. By the end of our first year, I gave in to Jim's urging. After appearing on the Paul Coates show, I wrote a 4-page pamphlet about Overeaters Anonymous. There was one page describing OA, how it can help you, another page telling how OA came into being, a third page listed the 12 steps. At Jim's insistence, I had rewritten the steps again. They were not yet just like AA's, but they were getting there. The 4th page contained my subject for today. I knew I had to address the issue of the traditions, but how? I simply couldn't understand that word, tradition. What did that mean? What did that have to do with us? I understood that they were unifying principles for AA, so that's what I called them, the 12 unifying rules. And that was what was in that 4-page pamphlet that I wrote. I didn't bring it with me, but that's what it was. The steps and the 12 unifying rules. I was still struggling with the concept of God, so I took out the first half of AA's Tradition 2 about one ultimate authority. Our second unifying rule said simply, our leaders do not rule us. They are but trusted members who merely serve. And the third unifying rule stated, the only requirement for OA membership is an honest desire to stop overeating and to effect a change in eating habits. Let me repeat that. The only requirement for OA membership is an honest desire to stop overeating and to effect a change in eating habits. That was our first version of what was to become Tradition 3. You see, Joe and I, the first two members, were overweight, compulsive overeaters. We were forming an organization for people like us. That's why I was calling this fellowship Overeaters Anonymous. At that time, the alcoholics, the gamblers, and the narcotics addicts all had 12-step groups where they could identify with one another. There were no other 12-step groups then. Each fellowship knew that it could not be all things to all people, that mutual identification was the key to recovery, that it was important to keep the focus on their common compulsive behavior. Although the term eating disorders was not yet in anyone's vocabulary, we, Joe and I, would have felt that was too all-inclusive. We were fat. We were overeaters. We needed each other and others like ourselves. That was the reason OA was established. The response from Paul Coates' show was overwhelming to the 7 of us, 500 letters. Many of those who responded were women who were very familiar with Alcoholics Anonymous. Oh my, they were definitely unhappy with our rewritten 12 steps and 12 unifying rules. And that's putting it mildly. During the following year, the grumblings became louder, and in February 1962, a meeting of secretaries from the 6 existing OA groups was held in Los Angeles to discuss the matter, and I represented our tiny General Service office. As a result of that meeting, the 6 secretaries voted to revise and strengthen our little 4-page booklet and to rewrite our 12 steps and 12 unifying rules to conform to AA's steps and traditions, with the substitution of the phrase compulsive overeating for alcoholism wherever necessary. Since I had written all of OA's literature up to that point, that task was given to me. We also agreed to consider holding a true National Overeaters Anonymous conference to be held annually here in Los Angeles. During the next 3 months, I wrote something no one's ever seen. I pulled it out of my files, a 40-page adaptation of the first 163 pages of the AA Big Book. This was sent to AA's General Service office in New York. I was very proud of it. Oh, of course, AA refused permission for publication. Gently and lovingly, they cited copyright violation and suggested we shared their ideas in our own words. However, during the writing of that book, I began the task of bringing OA's 12 steps and 12 unifying rules into line with AA's steps and traditions. I remember so well that fateful night when our 12 unifying rules became our present-day 12 traditions. It was late at night, my usual writing time. Still my usual writing time. Marvin, my husband, and my 2 little girls were asleep, and the house was quiet. As you know, my little dining room was the first OA National Service office. Sitting at my typewriter, I began typing, "The only requirement for OA membership is," and then I stopped. There were only 4 possible ways to phrase the requirement: a desire to stop eating, a desire to stop overeating, a desire to stop eating compulsively, a desire to stop overeating compulsively. Well, a desire to stop eating didn't even make sense. We all need to eat to live, so that phrase was crossed out. A desire to stop overeating was better, but it didn't seem to address the compulsive nature of our disease. Then I typed the next 2 options over and over, trying them out, trying to find the right one. A desire to stop eating compulsively or a desire to stop overeating compulsively. Which was better? In the spring of 1962, I was a young woman, 33 years old, stubborn, self-willed, and a perfectionist. I said, life has taken care of all of that. I said to myself, to say overeating compulsively isn't good enough. We should never, never eat when we're angry or afraid or resentful, or indeed with any feeling at all. That's compulsive eating, and we can't do that. Of course, my definition of compulsive eating was far too rigid, but I didn't know that then. I was naive and inexperienced. I just didn't appreciate the subtle difference between overeating to stuff down feelings and eating appropriately at a mealtime, even though at that moment I might be angry or frightened or just plain rushed because I was late for an appointment. Eating a meal while feeling that way is not necessarily compulsive eating, but I couldn't see that. I wanted everything to be absolutely serene and perfect when I ate my meal. And I had 2 little babies. Besides, I was looking for the same black and white definition that our AA friends had. In addition, I didn't notice that I wasn't being consistent. Step 12 and Tradition 5 mentioned compulsive overeaters. All of our writings at that time talked about compulsive overeater and overeating. Tradition 3 should have used the same phrase. I sometimes think that our first version of Tradition 3 was the most accurate. The only requirement for OA membership is an honest desire to stop overeating and to effect a change in eating habits. While I would have removed the word honest, I'm sorry I didn't leave the rest of it alone. At the very least, I regret not having written the only requirement for OA membership is a desire to stop overeating compulsively. As a result of my choice of words, we've had problems for 32 years. Fortunately, very early on, we've built safeguards into our bylaws. Changing any part of the steps or traditions requires a yes vote by 3/4 of the registered OA groups around the world. That long ago night, when I changed traditions and steps all alone, was the last time I would have that opportunity. Untroubled by committees and delegates, I made my own decisions. Never again in the history of OA would I get my way so easily. However, the 15 delegates at that first national conference in August 1962 discussed the steps and traditions very carefully. They made a few more changes, but Tradition 3 was left untouched. Then they voted, and the results were unanimous. The 12 steps and 12 traditions were adopted as the foundation of Overeaters Anonymous. Those are the steps and traditions which appear in our bylaws today, the same steps and traditions which you all hear read every day, every night, in more than 10,000 OA meetings in 50 countries around the globe. In English, Spanish, German, Portuguese, French, Hebrew, Italian, Greek, and other languages as well. For 32 years, since the first conference, these 12 steps and 12 traditions have been the foundation of our individual recovery and of our fellowship as well. Let's all protect them, practice them in all our affairs, and cherish them as if our lives depended on them, because, of course, they do.
What I would like to do is I'm going to call out a amount of time in the program. I'd like for you to sit down as I announce. Would everyone with less than a year please sit down? Would everyone with less than 5 years please sit down? In the program. Everyone with less than 5 years in the program, please sit down. Everyone with less than 15 years in the program, please sit down. Everyone with less than 25 years in the program, please sit down. Everyone with less than 37 years in the program, please sit down. Do we have anyone standing with 38 years in the program? Would you come speak to us, please? Could the trustees also please sit down? And I think the sincerest form of flattery is that you don't have to recognize or say anything about anybody. Just let them speak. You want to sit down here?
First of all, can you all hear me? Okay. Good morning, my friends. My name is Rozanne, and I'm a compulsive overeater. Thank you. As you know, I've been in OA 38 years and 5 months. I've been abstaining from compulsive overeating for 11 years and 7 months. My top weight... We can give that one to God. My top weight was around 190 pounds in OA, and I'm maintaining a 55 to 60 pound weight loss. I want to ask, did you enjoy Thursday morning's creative OA mini meeting that we held up here? Did you enjoy that? You'll recall that meeting was set in 1968. The year I put my hand in yours was published. That year we had 100 OA groups. Now I'd like to take you further back in time to August 1962, when we had 21 groups. On Saturday, August 11th, 36 years ago, 16 delegates met for our first National Business Conference. Sunday afternoon, we held an open session for family and friends where all 16 delegates spoke. And you'll find a description of this in Chapter 8 of Beyond Our Wildest Dreams. At the opening of that session, I made a little speech. The words I spoke to the audience then apply just as much to you and me and to our groups today as they did to our struggling little fellowship that long ago Sunday afternoon. This next portion is from that speech. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to see all these faces. This is a time of great significance for Overeaters Anonymous as a fellowship and for all the suffering compulsive overeaters everywhere who are alone, afraid, misunderstood, and crying out for help. As many of you know, we have just completed our first national conference, composed of 16 delegates from the 21 OA groups now existing across the country. We hope that OA will progress and grow, that each year there will be this sort of conference. We stand united now under these 12 steps and 12 traditions which you heard read today. These steps and traditions were adapted yesterday as our basic creed. We are now united in a common solution to a problem which threatens to wreck our lives and destroy our thinking, the progressive illness we call compulsive overeating. We are another link in a long chain by which men and women for hundreds of years have tried to bind themselves together to relieve their common problem. Overeaters Anonymous is a remarkable fellowship. It embraces love, acceptance without judgment, and above all, self-sacrifice on the part of the individual and the group. Now, stopping here for a moment, I want to address that last sentence. Do we in 1998 practice self-sacrifice? Or do some of our members feel that their way of eating is the only way for everybody? Do others believe that the meeting format they like is the only right one for that group? Self-sacrifice is the spiritual essence of anonymity, submergence of the ego for the good of the group. In a righteous quest for power and control, have some of us forgotten how important it is to put aside our own egos for the good of other human beings? Back in 1962, I also said, our recovery is assured only so long as we remember to practice our principles in all our affairs and to carry this magnificent message to the compulsive overeater who still suffers. In the future, I'm sure that Overeaters Anonymous will make mistakes. We need not fear these mistakes as long as we remember to confess them, to admit them, and to correct them at once. The words in this last sentence are just as valid and equally as vital to our fellowship in 1998 as they were in 1962. And by the way, feel free to take notes as I speak so you can take some of these ideas home. Does your group hold regular group conscience meetings? If not, why not? Is your intergroup holding scheduled delegates meetings? If so, within these groups and intergroups, do we recognize our mistakes? As members working together, do we admit these mistakes? Are we entirely ready to correct our wrongs at once? Or do we sit in meetings, especially business meetings, arguing and nitpicking at one another until the very soul of the gathering is lost? At the start of OA, when Joe and I began talking to one another, we had one goal and one goal only: weight loss. We were both fat. We wanted to stop overeating, lose weight, and become slender. We were not concerned with specific diets, with our inner child, with fancy psychoanalytic theories. Although I had rewritten some of the steps, Joe and I used those steps to discuss why we were eating so much, where we could eat less, and equally important, how we could change our eating behaviors. By the time Barbara S. and I were interviewed by Paul Coates on television, OA was 10 months old. I was 33 years old and weighed 110 pounds. I had lost 51 pounds and Barbara had lost even more. Physically, we were both programs of attraction. That was not only important, it was the reason for OA's immediate and dramatic success. 2 fat women would never even have been interviewed. As members poured in, we had the usual growing pains of every young organization, but we knew exactly who we were and why we had been established. We were certain the 12 steps would work for compulsive overeaters just as they had for alcoholics and gamblers. Many of us at that time went to open AA meetings regularly, and for 10 years the Los Angeles area AA members came to our meetings to teach us about the 12 steps. Some even led 12-step study groups for us. Have you tried this? Have you tried this in your area where the meetings may be new or faltering, particularly in regions 9 and 10, but in all other regions as well? Go to open AA meetings. Ask your local AAs for help. They have been very generous with their strength and encouragement. In the early days, we were all so enthusiastic and determined. We knew that abstinence from overeating included weight loss, along with spiritual and emotional progress. It was unacceptable, even dishonest, to take an abstinence birthday candle while remaining overweight year after year after year. What are you abstaining from, we would ask the member. Even during the gold, pink, green, and gray sheet conflicts, we all knew how important it was to have a healthy eating plan. We encouraged immediate sponsorship and calling our sponsors every day, and there were always members willing to be sponsors. We insisted that members read AA's big book in 12 and 12. Each of us reached out to newcomers. We called them. We held 12-step study groups. After the OA Lifeline began publication, the majority of members began to subscribe to it. And we urged members to work all 12 steps, beginning right away. The 2-hour meetings always had a coffee break with fellowship after the first hour. And the shorter meetings encouraged fellowship time after the meeting, so we could talk to newcomers and to each other. Does your meeting do that today? Or do you just go home? Try it. It's important. Unlike the laziness of today, There was always someone eager to be secretary, treasurer, literature person, newcomer contact. We understood that service was vital to the success of the group and the fellowship. But I've seen meetings recently where the outgoing secretary had to beg for service replacements. And yet people get up and brag about how grateful they are to OA. Gratitude begins at home with your group. When volunteers are needed to help clean up after the meeting, raise your hand. I always do. Why should I say, let someone else do it? Service is my responsibility, my thank you to God for all that has been given to me. And when the basket is being passed, put in at least a couple of dollars at every meeting you attend. Movies cost more than ever, yet we stand in long lines to go in. We think nothing of stopping off at the local expensive coffee house. Why do we skimp on the fellowship that we claim has saved our lives? Financial support is part of our responsibility, yours and mine. I am concerned and saddened to see the condition of Overeaters Anonymous today. We are losing groups by the hundreds. Lifeline subscriptions are down from 25,000 in 1990 to 10,144 today. That's a 59% drop. Why? Are you subscribing? Do you encourage your sponsees to subscribe? Does your meeting have a Lifeline representative to give a regular pitch for the meeting? I've been a Lifeline rep. Why can't you? I carry Lifeline in my purse to read in long lines at the bank, in doctors' waiting rooms, and other places. I give copies to prospective members. We can all do the same thing. Lifeline is our meeting between meetings. If we don't subscribe and support it, there won't be any OA magazine. Other commercial magazines have gone bankrupt. Why couldn't it happen to Lifeline? And while I'm on the subject, how many of you have written letters and items and articles for our magazine? You don't have to be a professional writer. Our editors are great. They'll fix it for you. Just share your heart with your fellow members. You'll see, you will be the one to reap the benefit. Now, returning to the problems of our fellowship. What will happen to you and me if OA disappears? Where will we go for recovery? And don't think it couldn't happen, because it already has. In the mid-1860s, there was an organization called the Washingtonian Society. Established for alcoholics, it had at its peak 100,000 members. Yet within 6 years, it had disappeared completely. Ask yourself, what happened to all those alcoholics? Did they all go back to drinking? We must not let the same thing happen to Overeaters Anonymous. We must raise ourselves from the laziness and the lethargy into which we have sunk today. We must take action, each one of us. What are some of the things we could do? Again, these are more ideas to write down and discuss with your group and your intergroups. For starters, let's take a look at some of the structure included in the How and Gray Sheet meetings. Now, I repeat, I am not talking about the eating plan. But what about making 3 outreach calls a day? Why not include an intense focus on the 12 steps, a regimen of personal discipline, and reliance on abstinence as defined in a specific, written, personal plan of eating? What about using questions relating to the steps while working with a sponsor? OA has a workbook for this purpose, or your group could choose its own list. What about these ideas? Consider them. Discuss them. And before you overreact to any of these suggestions, please understand I am not offering any or all of these options as solutions. I'm bringing them up as topics for discussions within your groups. Perhaps you might want to incorporate them into a new group meeting format. Maybe you could use them as springboards for discussions on how to retain your present members and bring in new overeaters. It is up to us to reinvigorate, to bring back to life Overeaters Anonymous. Wringing our hands won't help at all. Binging because you're afraid OA might disappear doesn't solve anything. Fighting only aggravates the situation. Now is the time for each of us to reach inside our hearts and souls, to stop and ask God for guidance. Give up trying to control everything and everyone. Compromise. Submerge your ego for the good of the group. We have very serious problems. Let's find new and creative solutions. You can do it. We can do it. The words I said after our first conference in August 1962 were never more prophetic than they are at this very moment in 1998. We have a long way to go in OA. We have many wonderful precepts of other fellowships to look back on, to help us, and to guide us. If we, as groups and individuals, keep in mind that always there are hundreds of thousands of people around us who are drowning in a well of despair and fright and who don't know where to turn, if we can reach out our hands to these people to help them, if we can share what we have learned, if we can apply it to all areas of our lives, we will indeed have performed the task for which we have been placed on this earth. There are others waiting to hear the answer. There are many of us here who have applied this program, each in his or her own individual way. Many interpretations, but one common solution. For us, and for all those who are still suffering, may God help us and them as we try to help ourselves together. Thank you.
It is my pleasure today to introduce someone who saved my life by being able to overcome the fear and get in touch with their higher power, even in the disease of compulsive overeating, and come through and give us a fellowship by which we could find love and understanding beyond our wildest dreams. And you know, as we stand here today, we are able to have a fellowship because one person was able to walk through the fear and go to another and say, how can I start a program to help other compulsive overeaters? And I would like to welcome someone who is very dear and very important to this fellowship because she's the one who said, I can walk through the fear and I can give us love. I'd like to introduce Rozanne.
Good morning, my friends. Can you all hear me? Can you all see me? Well, my name is Rozanne, and I'm a compulsive overeater. Have you enjoyed this conference so far? Yeah. It's just a big delegates meeting from Intergroup. Well, it is wonderful to meet so many new and old friends from around the world, isn't it? Isn't it really? Yes. Welcome to everybody from this globe. On Monday, day after tomorrow, I will have been in OA for 37 years and 4 months. I have been abstaining for 10 years, 6 months, and 2 weeks, and I'm maintaining a 55 to 60 pound weight loss. And that's due to only one thing, because I kept coming back. Oh, it's due to God, but it's because I kept coming back. There is a strange little ritual that sprung up in Los Angeles meetings in the last several years. When the member reading the 12 traditions comes to the end of the 12th tradition, While reading the last sentence, the group joins in by proclaiming principles before personalities. Now, I don't know how many of your groups do this or where the practice came from, but each time I hear it chanted, I wonder if the members really think about what they are repeating. What principles are we talking about? Why should we place them before personalities? How are we using the word personalities in this instance? And most important, what does the word anonymous mean in our 12th tradition, and why is it our spiritual foundation? Whew, these are heavy-duty questions, ones that could be discussed during the course of a whole meeting, an entire retreat weekend, or even in an OA publication devoted just to this one subject. Well, for starters, OA has just such a publication, and it's called Anonymity, the Meaning and Applications of Traditions 11 and 12. It's a reprint of 4 Lifeline articles I wrote about 15 years ago, and it's available out of the literature table. Yes, it's available out of the literature table. We've all heard and read, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. Going back to my earlier questions, what do those precious words mean? In listening to thousands of discussions about anonymity, principles, and personalities, the one word I've never heard examined is foundation. Yet isn't that word the basis of the whole tradition? Isn't the foundation the bedrock, the stable bottom upon which another structure is built? But we're not just talking about any ordinary foundation. The tradition specifically refers to a spiritual foundation. And what else could that be but the firm support of our higher power? And what is it that's built upon this firm bedrock, this spiritual foundation? Well, anonymity, of course. And what does that word mean? To begin with, the word comes from early Latin and Greek, and it means without a name. We can look at that sense of being nameless in 2 ways. The first is very unsettling. If we don't have a name, an identity, then we become just another face in the crowd, and that can be very frightening. It's almost as if we're losing ourselves. But let's turn that around. If we can accept the idea of being nothing special, then we truly become one among many, each person no better and no worse than every other OA member. We come to see that we must submerge our own ego and blend with the rest of humanity for our own sake, as well as for the good of the group and the preservation of OA as a whole. And to our surprise, and I have found this to be true, to our surprise, quieting the ego relieves us of a great deal of pressure, enabling us to relax, abstain, let go, and live one day at a time. Now, as newcomers, and I know all of you as newcomers felt this way, most of us felt much worse than other human beings. Unfortunately, some of us world savers felt better, more important than others. From OA's second year until this very day, you'll have to excuse me, I'm coming off of laryngitis. We have had both kinds of human beings among us. I must confess that I've been on both sides of this dilemma. Our new history book, Beyond Our Wildest Dreams, hope I can make this, is available today at the literature table. In that book, you'll see that I began my OA participation, in fact my whole life, by feeling utterly worthless. As I became very thin, I was also filled with an exaggerated sense of my own importance. Talk about putting personalities before principles. I felt that because I was the founder, or co-founder, whichever one you like, you know that God is our founder. Don't you know that? Yes. Thank you. Every word, I felt that because I was the founder or co-founder, every word that dropped from my lips was a pearl of wisdom. But when Irene B. came along with her new eating plan, she felt the same way. And you all know what happens. I know you all know when two personalities clash. Suddenly, OA was divided into two opposing factions, sometimes even more. And our beautiful principles were overshadowed by the force of controlling personalities. Eventually, 32 years ago, food became my only friend and source of comfort. And I returned to overeating and a 75-pound weight gain. And I didn't leave OA. For my first 3 decades in OA, I found myself floundering between an inflated sense of self-importance and an equally deflated sense of worthlessness. Of course, I floundered between abstinence and overeating, weight loss and weight gain as well. Yes, sadly, I had lost sight of the concept of spiritual anonymity, and it was my downfall. Learning my lessons hasn't been easy, and it hasn't been easy for our fellowship as a whole either, as you saw yesterday. For 37 years, the OA members have swung between active hatred, bitter hatred, and a tendency to idolize the woman who first conceived the idea of this fellowship. The hatred has been very, very, very hurtful to me, and the celebrity has been a danger to all concerned. Why a danger? Because it flies in the face of the last part of Tradition 12 to place principles before personalities. And that brings us back to our spiritual foundation. Anytime we use a name or a title on an OA event flyer, anytime we promote our membership in the public, anytime we place someone on a pedestal or allow ourselves to be placed on that pedestal, we are placing personal self-importance before the principle of humility. And humility is the essence of anonymity, the spiritual foundation of our entire program. Frightened people pleasers and power-hungry individuals have always been with us, and always will be. There are 12 steps to help us resolve these conflicting feelings as individuals. But what do we do when the very survival of our group, sometimes our fellowship, is threatened? Let's be specific and start with the problems of arguments and crosstalk during the meeting, resulting from placing personalities before principles. This is a copy of the original I Put My Hand in Yours. How many of you have seen this? How many of you have read it? That's great. Take a look. Take a look at this booklet at the literature table. It's at the literature table? Thank you. On page 4, you'll discover how we solved that problem 37 years ago in our new little group, and there was only one group. We set up our chairs theater style instead of placing the chairs every which way. That suggestion came from Jim W., the Gamblers Anonymous founder, who was OA's first sponsor. However, today in Los Angeles, especially in discussion groups where we do sit in a circle, our groups have gone even further. We have incorporated "there is no crosstalk" right into our written formats, and that section is read by the leader at every meeting before pitches begin. Are you all clear on what I've just said? Next, we have the member, clearly self-will run riot, who insists on controlling the group. And I have been there, so I know what that's like. My food plan is the only way to eat, he or she will insist, and woe to anyone who disagrees. My way of taking an inventory, working the steps, running a meeting is the only way to go. Soon, personalities invade the meeting. Everyone is upset. Some members may return to binging or may even leave OA. In the worst cases, the entire group is destroyed. And what happens to the overeaters then? None of this had to happen if only the principles of the 12 steps had come before personalities. What's the solution? Well, regular group steering committee meetings, of course. In my home group, we announce every week that we will hold a steering committee meeting every 3 months. Now, this particular group has 150 members, so it's quite large, and we need that meeting. All members are welcome. All OA members, all group members are welcome. Motions are made, problems are discussed, and votes are taken just as we do in this conference. Many OA groups hold these meetings once a month. When you bring this idea back to your home group, make sure the group plans regular group conscience meetings and incorporate the dates into your format. Announce them ahead of time. Announce the subjects ahead of time. In our group, if you're going to make a motion of whatever kind, you have to be there at group steering committee meeting when the motion is made. What if the controlling person still won't accept the group conscience? Well, gossiping or crying on the phone won't solve anything. It's time for the group officers to call another emergency steering committee session. And I want to add a little paragraph that isn't in my speech. Some of the young women are bringing babies to our meeting. It's making me crazy. Because they cry in the back, they cry in the front, I can't hear the speaker, I move to the front, they move to the front. I move to the back, they move to the back. So I brought it up as a motion, and I was outvoted. Now, I can either go to another group or accept it. And that's what I did. I accepted it. There was nothing else to do. It was a group conscience, but still there are some people who won't accept the group conscience, because we always think we're right, don't we? Well, nobody here, but actually I still think I'm right about those babies. What can be done next? Now it's time for the secretary and maybe one or two longtime group members to suggest to that disruptive member, lovingly and kindly, that he or she might want to find a different group. If not, remember that the early AA literature tells us how any member with a resentment and a coffee pot can start a new group. All this boils down to what I talked about earlier. Submergence of the ego for the good of the group. And I hope you remember that at this conference. It is so hard to give in when you know you're right. But what difference does it make when we're sure we're right if the arguments kill a group or send even one member out to eat again? I may have thought I was a remarkable founder of this fellowship, but I was wrong. God is the founder, and we are all just messengers. After tomorrow, you'll all go back to your towns and home groups, to your delegates meetings and regional assemblies, to your jobs and families and everyday trials and joys. If you don't remember anything from this conference, remember this: anonymity, submergence of the ego, your ego and mine, for the good of the group, being just another member of the human race, is one of our most precious possessions. It is the spiritual foundation of our transformed lives as well as our traditions. Don't trample on anonymity. Treasure it instead. Learn more about it. Understand how it can keep self-will out of everyday reactions, laying instead a foundation of love, compassion, understanding, and acceptance. We are compulsive overeaters, and we have been given the most generous gift imaginable. Take that gift home with you and give it away. In doing so, you and I will find love and understanding beyond our wildest dreams. Thank you.
It's now my pleasure to introduce our co-founder, Rozanne S.
I'm not used to being so tall, but I am 7 inches from goal height. My name is Rozanne, and I'm a compulsive overeater. And before I go into my address, I have 2 things I'd like to say. Number one, you all know about Marvin by now, my husband, and his death on November 11th. And I want to thank everybody here who's been wonderful at this conference, the 130 or 40 letters, cards, donations, everything that we got, including many entire intergroups from Region 10, from Italy, from France. I just want to thank everybody. It is the hardest time in my life, but I have gone through these 6 months without binging or overeating or eating any excess food. And for that, I'm grateful to the OA people who have helped me and to the God in whom I believe. You know that I've had laryngitis this week, but I guess I've been restored to voice. I understand we have 1 or 2 French-speaking delegates here, and so I would like to say to them, pour vous, mon ami, bonjour, je m'appelle Rozanne, et je suis une outre-manger compulsive. Good morning, all my wonderful friends. My name is Rozanne, and I'm a compulsive overeater. Next Friday, I will have been coming back to OA meetings for 40 years and 4 months. I've been abstaining from compulsive overeating for 13 years, 6 months, 9 days. I'm 5 feet tall, my top weight was 185 pounds, and I'm maintaining a 55 to 60 pound weight loss with 13 and a half years of abstinence. Why is it so important to give you these numbers? It's important because stating our physical recovery very specifically reinforces the promise of abstinence and a healthy weight and body size for every single person sitting in your meeting room. I firmly believe in qualifying every time I talk at an OA meeting, even if it's a brief 3-minute pitch or if I'm leading a meeting with just 3 or 4 of us in the room. It's vital to give the newcomer hope and to carry our message of recovery, not only to the newer members, but to the rest of us as well. I've heard a lot of gloom and doom about OA, not only at this conference, but over the last few years as well. It's true that we have a lot of room for improvement, but I'm here to give you hope and encouragement. I believe in OA and the principles of the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. Have you all read our OA history, Beyond Our Wildest Dreams? Thank you. You'll discover that we started with an idea and 2 women, and just look where we are today. Yes, we had 2,400 more groups 5 years ago. Yes, we had more than twice as many lifeline subscriptions as we have today, but that doesn't mean that we can't learn from what we've been doing or not doing and reverse our course. That's what our discussions this week are all about. Well, let's start with a little bit of conference history. In the 1960s, during OA's first several conferences and conventions, I was hotel liaison with the Los Angeles Marriott Hotel, where we held our activities. The banquet manager told us that OA was their favorite convention out of the many hundreds held there each year. When we asked why, he told us, because OA orders more room service and late-night desserts than any other convention during the year. I was shocked and disgusted. What does that say about us? Is that still happening today here in this hotel? We are participants in OA's World Service Business Conference. Every single member here should be abstaining from binging and compulsive overeating. Everybody. But what if you are having problems with food? There is so much love in this room. Go up to someone and say, I need some help. Can we talk after the meeting? I know you might be scared or ashamed,
But look around you. Take advantage of someone here. After all, we are all trudging that road of happy destiny together. Back home, does each one of you have a recovering sponsor? And if not, why not? Are you still trying to do it alone? If you are, you've missed the point of OA, AA, and other 12-step groups, that together we could do what we could never do alone. Do you talk to each newcomer after a meeting, or do you ignore them and gather with your friends? Remember how you felt at your first meeting? After the We Care book or sign-up sheet has gone around the room, your meeting does have one, doesn't it? Get hold of it and take down the names and numbers of newcomers who are probably frightened and bewildered. Call each one at least once during the week. All you have to say is, "Hi, my name is Rozanne, and I saw you at the meeting. I just wanted to say hello and ask if you have any questions. Can I do anything to help you?" 2 weeks ago, our longtime friend, dear Abby, this is time for pencil and paper, ran an article on a subject other than overeating. In the middle of her response, she said, "To abstain means to practice deliberate restraint and or self-denial in relation to an urge or craving." Could that be the definition we've been looking for? Let me repeat it. To abstain means to practice deliberate restraint and or self-denial in relation to an urge or a craving. And that brings me to the subject of physical recovery among the members of Overeaters Anonymous. I know that many, many people have lost considerable weight or gained it if they're anorexics. I've been to thousands of meetings around the world during my 40-plus years in OA and seen lots of very exciting long-term recoveries. But what about the hundreds and hundreds of members who are unable to give up excess food and who therefore have not achieved and maintained a healthy body size? I've been where they are. I've been there when they've accepted a candle for several, I didn't do this. I've been there when they've accepted a candle for several years of so-called abstinence, and yet they are grossly obese. What are we to make of this? We are all so afraid of confrontation that we enable each other in our disease, literally loving each other to death. Let me give you a personal illustration. Although I went from 161 pounds to 110 pounds in a size 6 during OA's first 4 years, and I have a picture of that if anyone wants to see it. I was so young and thin then. In 1964, I began to overeat again, and by 1972, I was back to 148, on my way to 185 pounds. I was also OA's national secretary. At a national trustees meeting that June, the trustees said to me, "Rozanne, you cannot serve OA at this level at your weight." And they fired me. It took me 20 years to forgive them and myself, but they were absolutely right. They did not enable my disease. They insisted that OA's national service workers had to be a physical example of recovery. Why aren't we doing that today, even at the group, intergroup, and regional level? Why are we so afraid to say to someone, "I see you're gaining weight. What can I do to help you?" Why can't we say to a binging, weight-gaining secretary, "Our group conscience says the secretary needs 1 year's abstinence. If you're having problems with food, we'll love you and help you, but we need to elect a new secretary." Joe and I started OA because we were fat and we wanted to stop overeating to reach and maintain a healthy body size. My own experience tells me that we must face our illness head on. Not only are the 12 steps our program of recovery, but we each need an honest, nourishing plan of eating as well. And perhaps it's time for OA to bring back a new century version of dignity of choice. We can change our attitudes and ourselves. We can bring enthusiasm and excitement back to our meetings. Let's make service its own reward once more. At my Sunday morning meeting 2 weeks ago, there was no coffee for the 100 members there. Why? Coffee person just didn't show up, and we had to elect someone else. One person volunteered, just one, but there was major applause, and we could feel the joy of working together. Another member caught up in the excitement, immediately said, "At our next month's election, I'll volunteer for Lifeline representative. It'll be a pleasure." During our first decades, there was always someone eager to be secretary, treasurer, literature person, newcomer contact. We understood that service was vital to the success of the group and the fellowship. I've seen meetings recently where the outgoing secretary had to beg for service replacements. Yet people get up and brag about how grateful they are to OA. Gratitude begins at home, with your group. When volunteers are needed, don't say, "Let someone else do it. I'm too busy." Service is our responsibility. Our thank you to God for all that has been given to us. Finally, let's move on to membership attraction and retention. Here's some specific suggestions for you to take back to your intergroup. In the San Fernando Valley near Los Angeles, there's a 12-step within meeting held once a month in the Valley Intergroup office. They sent me this flyer after I'd written this speech, and it says, "Are you new to the program? Are you starting over?" It's called the New Starters Meeting, and I understand it's very successful. It's held once a month in the Valley Intergroup office. Available sponsors are asked to attend, along with newcomers and others who are looking for a sponsor. And rather than just saying, "Be sure to get a sponsor," that meeting gives members access to real, live people they can actually call. Also welcomed are returnees and anyone who wants information about our fellowship. A notice is placed in the community services section of the local newspaper about this meeting, and many people attend as a result of that notice. That same intergroup saved money over several months to place notices on bus stop benches with the OA name and phone number. And many people came to us as a result of that simple action. And if you will refer to page 25 of the latest Lifeline, you'll find in there attraction by billboard. Displayed in the Columbus, Ohio area, "Is food a problem for you? Overeaters Anonymous," with a little more information. Over the next year, 6 signs will be displayed throughout our area. You can all do this. This is a great idea. Look on page 25, and you'll get more information. Giving newcomers a lifeline. Bring your old lifelines to the meeting. Give one to every newcomer who comes in. Don't throw them out or give them to an AA bookstore. Bring them to the meeting. Another excellent idea is to announce a brainstorming session in your local newsletter. Invite everyone who's been in OA 1 year or less, along with those who left and are returning. This is not a regular meeting. It's time to discuss what you want, what people want from OA, what didn't work, and what will help them coming back. Try it. You may find it very successful. These are some positive and exciting examples of attracting newcomers and helping those people already in OA. And there are others too, if we will only take advantage of them. Don't be afraid to let people know about your OA membership. How will another overeater be attracted to your new life if you hide your light under the cloak of anonymity? Remember, Tradition 11 says we need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, films, television, and other public media of communication. Tell your friends and co-workers. Let others know about the hope and help you found in OA. That's not breaking anonymity, as it's outlined in our tradition. That's carrying out our primary purpose, which is to abstain from compulsive overeating and to carry this message of recovery to those who still suffer. I wrote a pamphlet for OA several years ago simply called Anonymity, and I saw it out there on the table. Get a copy from World Service. It's an OA publication. It will help clear up your confusion about the various aspects of anonymity. One last comment on the drives of stronger personalities to overwhelm others in the group. Do you always have to be right? To have things your own way? Having been one of those people, the importance of submerging my ego for the good of the group. Overeaters Anonymous is a delicate, precious gift from our higher power to everyone in this room and to all those people back in your home groups. Treasure what we have. Don't let apathy and laziness weaken OA. Don't allow personality problems to divide us. Instead, go home, take a deep breath, and start to work hard to strengthen and invigorate this incredible fellowship, there is no one way, no right way, no my way, no your way. There is only the way of our higher power as outlined in the 12 steps and 12 traditions. Just as anger and fear are contagious, so are love and hope. It only takes one smile, one word of kindness and encouragement to spread through your group, your intergroup and region, and eventually through our entire OA world. On this fragile planet Earth, we humans are all interconnected. We may think we are strong and totally independent, set apart by cultural differences, but we are all bound together by our common humanity. I think the last page of I Put My Hand in Yours expresses it best. In assuming responsibility, in sharing love and strength with one another, we create a bond between each of us. It can't be seen, but it can be felt in the heart. It's that bond of brotherhood between one overeater and another which clearly says, I care. I put my hand in yours. Now you are not alone. Thank you.
Questions from the floor? All right, the board has asked if OA's co-founder Rozanne would be so kind to discuss the issue of anonymity with you today, and she's pleased to be here, and we're very pleased to have her here with us. Please join me in welcoming Rozanne.
Thank you, everybody. Good morning, my caring, loving friends, and welcome to the Global Fellowship of Overeaters Anonymous. My name is Rozanne, and I'm a compulsive overeater. Next Saturday, I will have been coming back to OA meetings for 41 years and 4 months. I have been abstaining from compulsive overeating for 14 years, 6 months, and 8 days. I'm 5 feet tall, and I'm maintaining a 50-pound weight loss. Before I begin this morning's address, I want to thank all of you, for your love and support during the last 18 months. As you all know, my husband of nearly 44 years, Marvin, died on November 11th, 1999. Although I had many severe emotional and health reactions to his passing, I did not binge, nor did I gain any weight. Last September, I had breast cancer surgery, followed by 7 weeks of radiation treatments. Again, I had serious emotional and physical reactions to the surgery and treatments. Above all, I held fast to my belief that abstinence is the most important thing in my life, without exception. With the support of God, along with my friends and family, and by working the 12 steps, I learned once more that it is not necessary to relapse into compulsive overeating and gain a lot of weight, no matter what happens in life. Now, let's move on to anonymity, the subject of my talk to you this morning. This is a word that more than any other causes great confusion in our fellowship. The word anonymous comes from the Greek, and it means without a name. Where did our idea of anonymity come from? In AA Comes of Age, Bill W., AA's co-founder, states, in the beginning, anonymity was not born of confidence. It was a child of our early fears. Our first nameless groups of alcoholics were secret societies. Although we were no longer drinking, we still thought we had to hide from public distrust and contempt. AA's spiritual concept of anonymity was yet to be developed. By the time Joe and I were starting OA, the notion of a secret society for compulsive overeaters no longer applied. Although I took the last name of our new little fellowship from AA, I had absolutely no idea what the word anonymous really meant, or how important traditions 11 and 12 would become to me and to our newborn fellowship. Let's begin by making clear the difference between gossip and anonymity. According to the dictionary, gossip is idle talk or rumor about the personal or private affairs of others. Within the framework of OA's familiar idioms, we call that broken anonymity. But the concept of anonymity has a far deeper, more spiritual presence in our lives than merely not gossiping about others. The quality of our recovery depends upon understanding what anonymity means to each of us and how it enables us to change. With that in mind, let's start with general ideas and work back to specifics. To be anonymous in OA means to be one among many, not standing out in the crowd. It means we must accept ourselves as no better and no worse than our fellows. This acceptance places us in a state of humility. It makes us teachable, ready to learn about the principles embodied in our steps and traditions, those principles which we must ultimately place before the personalities in our lives. For example, if your group conscience has voted that anyone coming in late may not share at that meeting, then by raising your hand to speak if you arrived late, you are making yourself someone special, above the decision of the group. If your meeting members have chosen to use a 3-minute timer to limit pitches so everyone has a chance to participate, then by refusing to stop talking when the timer rings, you are saying, I don't need to abide by your rules. I'm more important than the rest of you. I know this can be difficult to understand, so let me say it another way. As compulsive overeaters, we spent most of our lives feeling different. Our egos swung from inflation to deflation. Sometimes we felt inferior to other people, afraid to take a stand for fear of rejection. Other times we felt superior, often insisting, my way is the only way. Is there anyone here who hasn't wavered between these feelings? Many of our group problems stem from these conflicting emotions. We all know people who try to control meetings. We also know others who are unable to object to that control. And actually, many of us, including myself, have been in both positions during our time in OA. As Bill W. said, the spiritual substance of anonymity is sacrifice. Gradually, we in OA learn to sacrifice, to submerge our egos for the good of the group. Remember that phrase, submerge our egos for the good of the group. I know it's hard, but we must do this if OA is to survive and we are to recover. Moving on to another confusing aspect of anonymity. How do we treat our fellowship at the public level? And again, AA becomes our teacher. In January 1954, Yale University wrote to Bill W., offering him an honorary degree. The AA Grapevine has published the moving series of letters between Bill and the university. Bill declined the honor for himself, citing the tradition of personal anonymity and no personal honors at the public level as AA's protective shield. However, in one of the last letters in that series, Bill set an example and clarified confusion for all of us when he wrote, though it might be a novel departure, I'm wondering if the Yale Corporation would consider giving AA itself the entire citation, omitting the degree to me. In such event, I will gladly appear at any time on behalf of our society. For those members who believe OA itself should remain anonymous, Bill's statement should resolve any misunderstanding. Ask yourselves, how can we be a program of attraction if we hide OA's light under the cloak of public anonymity so that other compulsive overeaters don't even know we exist? There's nothing wrong with placing the name Overeaters Anonymous with your local group or intergroup's telephone number in the public service listing of your community newspaper or the announcements of your local radio and television stations. Remember, Tradition 11 talks about maintaining personal anonymity. It says nothing about the anonymity of the fellowship as a whole. And now that we've entered the realm of public media, let's explore related issues a little further. The welfare of Overeaters Anonymous, like that of AA, depends upon a unanimous application of the principles of anonymity. It must be for all of us, with no exceptions. Oh, but you may protest, I have nothing to hide. TV is a visual medium, and newcomers will be attracted by my weight loss. And besides, it won't hurt my program. I've been maintaining for years, and I don't care who knows I'm a member. All of this may be true, but what if other members come forward and follow your example? Suppose they begin competing for publicity and financial payment. And what of the anonymity breaker who may return to compulsive overeating and gain weight? People who identify themselves as OA members in the public media are quite naturally seen as spokespersons for our program, and should they slip, the public's impression of OA would come from the noisy failures rather than the quiet successes. Oh, yes, you may say, but even though I showed my face as an OA member during that television interview as an OA member, I didn't use my last name. I thought that was enough. This is a common misconception. If you expect to be interviewed for a newspaper story or a radio or TV broadcast, ask yourself, do I intend to say I'm an OA member? If you do, the answer is clear. No faces, no last names. If you do not call yourself an OA member, even if you say you're a compulsive overeater, then you are free to use your full name and have your face appear on camera or in the newspaper. These guidelines also appear to OA writers. If you, and me, as a writer, identify yourself as an OA member, then your byline can be 1, first name and last initial, 2, anonymous, in quotes, or 3, an assumed name, making sure that a statement to that effect appears. Of course, no pictures of you can be used in the book, the newspaper, or today on the internet. If you say you are a compulsive overeater and don't reveal your OA membership, then you can use your full name, with or without your picture. Have I made myself clear on this subject? The key is not whether you say you are a compulsive overeater, but whether you identify yourself as a member of Overeaters Anonymous. Now, let's address next the initial confusion, not in the public realm, but within our fellowship. Many members ask, am I required to reveal my last name within the fellowship? For each of us, the choice is ours. No member is required to reveal anything, not even a first name. For professional reasons, many people prefer to withhold their last names. Others don't want their families or their neighbors to discover their OA membership. And whatever the reason, their wish to be anonymous, even when it is not necessary, must be respected. On the other hand, many of you say, if I use my last name at a meeting, I'm violating the traditions. This is a total misunderstanding of Tradition 11. Let's read that tradition together. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, films, television, and other public media of communication. Did you hear that phrase? Public media. It doesn't say anything about groups, meetings, or even person to person. If you want to use your last name in private in your group, enter into group or region meetings, or even today at World Service Conference, then go ahead and use it. There are times when using our full names actually protects our anonymity. Just use your common sense and think about it. For example, it is common practice all over the world to use first and last names in correspondence or package delivery systems. If something is addressed to Mary T. or John D. or Rozanne S., then anyone handling such mail would have cause to wonder, is this person in a 12-step program? And if you live where there are many mailboxes for your complex, how is the mail person supposed to know which Mary T. or John D. that letter is meant for? Confusion about whether or not to use full names also arises when an OA member is in the hospital or on vacation. If we expect fellow members to write or call, we need to give them our full names. It's not realistic to assume that mail clerks or telephone operators are mind readers, but they will be able to locate us by our first name and last initial. Remember, everybody, we are talking about you. You are free to use your last name privately. Right to reveal anyone else's last name without his or her permission. Let's revisit the phrase in the beginning of Tradition 11. Attraction rather than promotion. I have heard members say, oh, goodness, I can't tell anyone I'm in OA. That would be promotion. I have to wait until they come up to me and ask me how I've lost weight. Well, let's learn from Bill Wilson's account on pages 65 and 66 of AA Comes of Age. Bill for those of you who read it and remember, had been in Akron, Ohio on business. That Saturday night, Mother's Day Eve of 1935, he was pacing up and down in the lobby of the Mayflower Hotel, rationalizing that he could go into the bar, drink some ginger ale, and scrape up an acquaintance. Bill says, then I panicked. I remembered that in trying to help other people, I had stayed sober myself. And I thought, you need another alcoholic just as much as he needs you. He called a phone number on the church directory in the lobby, eventually was led to Henrietta Sieberling's daughter-in-law, and according to Bill, this is in quotes, next afternoon at 5 o'clock, that wonderful couple, Dr. Bob and Ann, stood at Henrietta's open door. That was the man who was to be my partner and founder of Akron's Group Number 1. According to Dr. Bob's story in the AA Big Book, the good doctor says, he, meaning Bill, he was the first living human with whom I had ever talked who knew what he was talking about in regard to alcoholism from actual experience. If Bill had just sat in the lobby that night, waiting for someone to rush up to him and ask him how he got sober, none of us would be here today. The same goes for you and me. Don't just stand there like a statue, waiting for someone to ask you how you lost weight, stopped throwing up, or recovered from anorexia. Tell your friends, your neighbors, your co-workers, and anyone else you want about what the OA program has done for you. Letting others know about our recovery in OA, it's a real chance to be an attraction for a still suffering compulsive overeater. Let's not hide the shining light of our recovery under the dark misunderstandings of the words attraction, promotion, and anonymous. Finally, let's talk about our promise of privacy. For most of us, OA is our haven, a place where we can unburden our hearts and begin to trust other human beings. Remember that word I defined at the beginning of this address, gossip? Sometimes, without meaning to be cruel, one member may say to another, well, I'm not breaking her anonymity because she said it at a meeting. Or, this isn't breaking anonymity because it's just between us. Other times, a person who is well known locally or even nationally appears at a meeting. OAs, like other humans, are impressed by prominent people. Did you hear who was at the meeting last night? One member will whisper to another. And as a result, personal privacy is lost. Early in our OA lives, we learn that at a private level, we may tell anyone anything we wish about ourselves, including the fact that we are OA members. But the right to discuss other members is not ours. That is what makes OA so splendid and so special in an unsettled world. Here we find sanctuary from gossip, competitiveness, and the hero worship that characterize much of our society. Here we are protected by the principles embodied in our remarkable program, the foundation of which is anonymity. And that brings me full circle, back to the concepts I described at the beginning of this talk, those concepts which are embodied in Tradition 12. As we've learned from the early AAs, ego reduction at depth is necessary for recovery. We come to see that we must submerge our ego for the good of the group and blend with the rest of humanity for our own sake and the preservation of OA as a whole. As we continue to grow in OA, we lose our desire for prestige. We take no credit for our recovery. Rather, we accept responsibility for our actions, looking only at our own faults and taking no one's inventory but our own. In the outside world, you and I might be someone very special. Perhaps we've accomplished a lot, created something wonderful, helped other people, and lived a loving life. But here in OA, we must learn to let go of the idea of being unusual or extraordinary. We must clearly understand the fundamental meaning of anonymity that the early AAs and their mentors have taught us. We are one with our fellows, submerging our egos for the good of the group. In Overeaters Anonymous, the feeling that I am nothing special is of tremendous value in maintaining abstinence. It fosters humility and thus guards against reemergence of that blind self-will that leads to the compulsion to overeat. This kind of anonymity is truly our most precious possession. Cherish it. Protect it. Understand it. Because your life depends upon practicing the spiritual essence of anonymity, and my life depends upon it too. Thank you.